And you don't just have to be, the wife of. So often I had the title of the wife of Chris Pronger, and which is great. And it's such an honor. I love my husband. I cherish him. I am his biggest cheerleader. But I knew I wanted my own identity. I knew I wanted my own career when the kids were grown and empty nesters. And that was really important to me.
You're listening to Breaking the Ice podcast, a podcast that I created in 2020 to connect women within the hockey world. My name's Devin Dodaro, my husband's Charlie Dodaro, and we've played literally all over the world. We have 2 kids, 2 dogs, and let's just say hockey has taken my world by storm. What I've learned is that this community and these experiences are very specific, and you should not have to go through this alone. Through this podcast, I share the tools, resources, do's, don'ts, and what's helped me along the way while continuing to learn from each and every one of you. So lace them up and tune in for episodes twice a month. And make sure to follow the page on Instagram at Breaking the Ice Pod. Welcome back to the podcast. So happy you're here today. This is such a great conversation that I know you're going to love. I love having women on this podcast that have been in this lifestyle for a long time. Although Lauren's not currently living this lifestyle still, she's still connected to it. Obviously, I think once you have experience and you've done years and years in this lifestyle, it's always going to be part of you in some capacity, and honestly really shapes us, whether we realize it at the time or not. It is almost August. This is a perfect day to edit the podcast because it is so smoky here in Idaho. So I am sitting here and I am listening to this back and I'm just like, boom, boom, boom. All of these points just hit and make me so grateful to be able to be in the position that I am and interview these amazing women that just can come on here and be so vulnerable and share all the things, advice, experiences, difficult times, monumental times. Just a 10 out of 10 listen. Chris Pronger is pretty widely known as one of the greatest defensemen in NHL history. He's a Hall of Famer, a Stanley Cup champion. He has won 2 Olympic gold medals. He is the former NHL MVP. And in this episode, we chat about Lauren's journey throughout this lifestyle, raising a family, building businesses, just navigating this life. Chris's career ended because he had a horrible concussion that did not allow him to continue to play, which I know a lot of women unfortunately experience with their spouse, the career-ending injury, career-ending concussion, whatever that may be. So she opens up about that. We talk about burnout. Whatever we thought of, we talked about, and I just know you guys are going to love this episode. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Lauren, for coming on the podcast. Had so much fun talking with you. You can head over to the show notes to check out all the things that Lauren's doing. She has a best-selling book. She runs 2 businesses, Super Well and Well Inspired Travels. And she also has an amazing Instagram page where she shares about all of these things. So check it out and enjoy the episode. This episode is brought to you by Rents for Baby. If you're anything like hockey families, you know that traveling with little kids can feel like you are packing up your entire house. Between the pack and play, stroller, sound machine, high chair, it all adds up very quickly. One thing I wish more families knew about is Rents for Baby, especially in this lifestyle. Instead of checking extra bags or trying to fit baby gear into a rental car for the all-star break or your trip for a few days, you can have clean, high-quality baby equipment delivered right to your Airbnb, hotel, or vacation rental before you even arrive. When your trip's over, they pick it all up, and it is honestly one of those services that just makes traveling so much easier. After talking with Lauren today about raising kids while living the hockey life, it's a good reminder that making travel easier isn't about bringing more, it's about bringing what actually matters. If you have a trip coming up, whether it's for the hockey season, a family vacation, or visiting grandparents, check out Rents for Baby and use my code ICE10 to save 10% on your order. Now let's get into today's conversation.
Yep. All the memories along the way. I love it.
Yeah. And I have to tell you before, I have to thank my husband for sending your reel over to me and he's like, this would be such a good guest. And then come to find out, my husband's a defenseman also. And he was like, he's one of like my favorite hockey players of all time. Like, I just love how he played the game and he has like a lot of respect for him. So he was super pumped that we're doing this. So
I love that. Thank you so much. I will pass on the nice words to the big guy.
Yeah.
He's up in air right now. He's on his way back from San Francisco. He does a lot of speaking, but I'm sure we'll get into it. But that's very... Yes. Where are you all based?
So we live in Eagle in Idaho. It's just right outside of Boise. Where are you guys?
So we are currently in St. Louis and moving to Austin. We bought land 9 years ago. So that's chapter 2. We're about to be empty nesters. So, which I'm sure we'll get into all that too.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's dive in. I'm ready. Lauren, welcome to Breaking the Ice. I am so excited to have you on the podcast. You have done your time in the hockey world and well past it. So I'm super excited to just dive into all the things with you and get to know you more. So thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and I look forward to the conversation. When you reached out, I was like, oh my, we can really unpack a lot together.
Yes.
It'll be a lot of fun.
Yes. So I do usually start off the podcast, like I mentioned to you, just getting a little bit of your guys' backstory. And I like to know where people have met their spouse and just kind of like what your life looked like from the very beginning. So how did you and Chris meet?
Gosh, that is a great question. Now, if Chris was sitting here next to me, he'd be like, oh my God, I'm starting. It's always like a big fight between the two of us because he has his version, I have my version. But condensed story is he was playing for the St. Louis Blues and I was dating a guy a little bit older than me for a few years and it was pretty serious. And we'd broken up and he was away for a little bit of time. And I was, whether you say nursing a little heartache, trying to figure life out. I was, figuring out, I was graduating from college. So next steps, what I wanted to do. Do I want to go to law school? What do I want to do? Because I've always, had big dreams for myself. But anywho, so when you least expect it. So my best friend liked the backup goalie for the Blues. And that was Chris's best friend. And so she said, come on, just be my wing woman. We were out at the bars and like I said, nursing a little bit of a heartache. So had a little bit of like, 20% buzz going. And it sure enough happened to be at Chris's house. He opens the door. And I have 2 older brothers that, love sports. And I was like, okay, so I knew who he is, but I was not a big sports, hockey, baseball. St. Louis is a huge sports town. I knew of his name, but I was like, oh, great, Sue. So you brought me here to Chris Pronger's house. So anywho, it was, he was very shy, very guarded. I can talk to the wall. I'm, instantly best friends with anybody in the room. And, he had not had a thing to drink because they had just come off of a massive game. They were leaving for a West Coast swing early the next morning. His plan was to get up early, work out, catch that long flight. And I guess I derailed the plans because it turned out to be, I don't know what time everything shut down. It was like closer to maybe 4 a.m. And
you guys had a night.
Oh, we did. We had a night, but there was no kiss. There was no, I just thought, okay, we had some nice conversations. And, really no major sparks. And so I guess, and this is Chris's version, he said, I was on the flight, headed to the West Coast and I thought, God, I got to get Stu's to get me her number. And I mean, back then we didn't have cell phones. We had phones on the wall. And I think I was cool enough to have a pager. And so he gets to LA and calls my apartment. And he was like, yeah, I want to take you out. And I said, I told him that the ex-boyfriend was coming back and that I said I'd pick him up from the airport and all the things. So he knew he wanted to get in before that guy came back. So long story short, he was determined and we went out that next weekend and the rest is history. He won me over. It was like, he brought his A game and it was like the cartoons, where the hearts like around us. He had another party and there was nobody else in the room. We were just eyes locked, goo goo gaga. And that was January of 99. And oh my God, am I getting the years right? And then he proposed by April. It was very fast, but then we had a 1.5 year engagement. So it was, when And we're just about to celebrate 25 years. We've been together 27 years.
My God, that is a major milestone.
It is.
That's huge.
Yep.
Okay. I love that story. So
Thanks.
you're from St. Louis originally.
Correct.
Okay. Where is he from originally?
He is from a small town called Dryden, Ontario.
Okay. So he's Canadian. So you
Mhm.
guys met. Did you go to law school?
No, I did not, because we got married. We had kids right away, and your engagement. And you know what? Thank God I didn't, because clearly my trajectory took me down a completely different path, which I know we'll get into.
Right. And I feel like I can't skip over the part about like the home phones and the pagers. How did you navigate this hockey life and the crazy, insane schedule, travel, trades, all the things with the home phone?
You just obviously we didn't know any better, because that was the only resources we had. Chris was actually cool enough that he had like the Zach Morris phones, like the big, chunky, like zoop phone. So he was able to call a lot more than I was. But we just figured it out. And I mean, obviously, our kids now talk about the love-hate relationship with technology, which fascinates me. I'm the same way. We're just about to head out of town for a couple of weeks, go off the grid, literally, Chris and myself, which we never do. I mean, we're in the travel business. Every time we travel is for work. Whether I'm speaking, he's speaking, it's a conference, it's just all over the place.
Right.
And we are trying our best to put as much technology away, and just we're getting out in nature, doing all the things that we love to do. So
I love that. That's amazing.
Yes.
You're going with the kids too?
Oh, no. This is just no. Our oldest, Jack, is 24. He works in Austin. He's in the AI tech finance space. And then George is actually, his birthday was yesterday. My little sweet George.
I saw that.
22 yesterday, and he's in Dallas. And he's got an internship. He's in real estate. And then Lila is off to camp for 5 weeks. She's going to be 18. And almost, like I said, almost empty nesters. We're like the mountain, we're like going down.
Right.
Especially after the boys. I know you have a lot of boys, right?
I have a boy and a girl. So I have a 5-year-old boy and a 3-year-old girl.
Okay, I don't know why. Yes, but that's great. You're both. Lucky you.
Yeah, it is nice having one of each. And I was going to ask you too, because so how old was your youngest when Chris retired?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. Okay, so that was 2011. He would have been, oh man, my math is so bad. Probably around, my guess would be 12, 11, 12.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, we were, and I was a young mama. I think I was 24 or 24 when I had him, 25.
Yeah.
And I was just having this conversation the other day with a girlfriend, because all my best friends were not even engaged. They were still out at the bars, having the time of their life. And I was this young new mom, and Chris is on the road all the time. And I was like, my God, I felt like a teenage mom. I was like, what happened to me?
Right. And then you're like going through this big life change, and none of your friends are there yet.
No, they're like, I'm up in the time that they're coming home from the bars. But I have to say, now I love it. I am so fired up. And Chris always says, see, I told you so. I told you so. Because now it's chapter 2. You're going to learn this about me. I am such an energizer bunny. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I am so fired up for everything I have been scaling and building, because it has been slow and steady over, span of 15 plus years of very methodical about all that I'm building. And now I'm like, I have the space, because I always wanted to be a really present mom for my kids. That was so important. I came from great family. Chris comes from a great family. It's a commitment. We know this, being married to a professional athlete in the hockey world and all of it. Somebody has to be there all the time. I always had the uncomfortable conversations with my boys about all the things. And I was like, just so you know, we're going to talk about it all. Because if Dad is in, Chris always was so good about it, but you just have to play that role of mom, dad a lot more than the typical, mom does, I would say, in a marriage where the husband's around a lot more, because even during the season, they cannot be distracted. They have to be mentally focused. So if it's a shit show at home, I probably can't say that word, but
you can say it. It's okay.
If it is, you're just like, I'm going to say, maybe for the summer or when they're on a nice long break, because that's just what you do so that they can stay top of game and stay in the zone.
Yeah. Shoo, shoo, shoo.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
so many questions for
Go.
you. So in the hockey lifestyle, obviously there's like so many people that are moms. And like you said, I love that analogy of like, you kind of do have to be mom and dad in a lot of different situations, which can be hard. And I think it's an interesting element that you are, you almost are empty nesters. And with the hockey life, I've said this before on the podcast, but I feel like it expedites everything so quick. Like you said, like you get married faster, you have babies younger, you're at home with the kids and you really have that time to like dedicate pretty much your whole life to the kids. Cause like you said, someone has to be home all the time. So how has that been for you, spending so much time being able to be at home and having your kids move out of the house? Because there are so many special memories and times with hockey throughout the lifestyle, and now to just kind of have them be out of the house, I'm sure is like a really big change for you guys. Exciting, but also maybe a little bittersweet in a way.
Yeah, that's exactly the word I was going to use. And it is, and I probably, this is very emotional for me, because it's a tough journey, and there's so many blessings. And I think from outsiders' perspective, people look at that as, oh, it's a fairy tale. But the reality is that it is not always that way. And there's so many curveballs and things that we deal with. And the kids have to be resilient. And I was just having this conversation with a woman in my community and coaching her through a tough time. And adversity builds character. And I look at our kids and all the moves and all the things that they dealt with have really served them so well, because now Chris and myself look at them, and as you asked, like, how do we feel? I would say that the word that comes to mind to me is like rewarding and
Okay.
accomplishment of job well done. I mean, they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. I'm the furthest thing from perfect, but I feel like, we've done pretty good with them. I mean, they're soaring, they're thriving. They, have very like incredible work ethics. Chris and myself, I come from kind of small town St. Louis. He comes from small town Canada. Um, Obviously, being married to professional athletes, there's a lot of gifts and blessings and living this life of you can have a lot more than, and it's about making sure you still keep the kids locked in on staying humble, staying grounded, kindness, and also their own work ethic. And I just feel like very accomplished and hopping down that mountain, I guess, because there were some tough times. I would say, in particular, the boys, from I always say from 16 to 21, their frontal lobe just have not fully formed, and their
I'm not
executive.
ready.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm like, at least my boys, and they were close in age. They're 2 years apart. They are the best of friends. It's the sweetest
Oh,
thing ever, because they were inseparable. Like growing up, every time we moved, they were like in the bunk beds together, and so they, they're challenging. They push boundaries all the time. And, like to see them now doing so well, Lila's a dream. She's an absolute angel. I always say to Chris, if we would have had Lila first, I swear I would have 20 kids. My boys, it took me 4 years to be brave enough to have another one after the boys. And
yeah.
girl, and I swear to God, faith is a huge part of who I am, the foundation of our family. And I always say that, God truly handpicked an angel, because he was like, you're married to Chris Pronger, that beast, I mean,
Yeah.
challenging
Yeah.
individual. And you have
You
these
built
two
a
people.
feminine energy in the house as well.
Yes. And he literally delivered the sweetest angel baby. That's what I
Oh.
call her. Yeah.
Oh, I love that so much.
Yeah.
So, as a mom of two young kids, do you have any advice for the moms that are kind of like in the thick of it with the travel, taking on that mental load of the household? Like looking back at your experience, like what would you say?
My gosh, there's so many things I could say. And this is what I love to do. My passion and drive and mission really is to help, women optimize their lives in every capacity. And obviously, really resonates with women in the professional athletic network. because it's a tough road and raising kids. And I would say give yourself a lot of grace. Enjoy those sweet, special memories and times with them, even though I know how challenging it is often being alone as a single parent. I know it's easier said than done, but I look back and I wouldn't change what I did for anything. Saying no to a lot of things, girls' trips and whatever it was that I said no to be present with the kids. And I also think one big, I think, piece of advice I always give women, particularly that are in this role, start working towards something that is your own. Start something. We all have talents. We all have gifts. And you don't just have to be, the wife of. So often I had the title of the wife of Chris Pronger, and which is great. And that's such an honor. I love my husband. I cherish him. I am his biggest cheerleader. But I knew I wanted my own identity. I knew I wanted my own career when the kids were grown and empty nesters. And that was really important to me. And I strategically chose my path in working towards something where I could be home with the kids, be very present, whether it was education, getting multiple certifications and training, and learning, because I'm a nerd. I'm such a nerd. And I didn't know what I was going to be doing with, these 10 different certifications over a span of 15 years. And Chris would be like, good God, woman, like, what are you going to school for now? And I loved what I was learning, absorbing, and I was building towards something. And obviously, I know we'll talk about that, but that would be a big piece of advice is, yes, you are a mother, you are a caregiver, you are a wife, all these things, but make sure you're really, leaning into yourself and building something that you're passionate about. And it doesn't have to be, overwhelming and stressful. Just start somewhere. And I find then it's an easier transition. And my kids look at me and they're so proud of all that I've been building, and they've seen me work so hard through the years. And I think that alone is such a lesson and a gift, especially for young girls. And so I don't know. I could go on about that.
You're right. You can get really swept up in the lifestyle. And because you have to be there, sometimes it feels like you can't find that time for yourself. But even just, slowly chipping away at different things, different avenues, exploring what you like, what you could see yourself doing at some point is really good advice to do.
Yeah.
Because eventually, retirement does come, whether you're ready for it or not. And, then the next chapter starts. And to have a little bit of an idea is important to do. So, yeah, I really like that.
And it's your hobby, like usually your hobbies and your passions lead to something successful that is a niche market. And in my opinion, that is the joy of it. Shouldn't be work. It should be every day. I mean, I jump out of bed every day, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's the truth. I wake up, my cortisol awakening response just naturally gets me up at 5 a.m. every morning. Wow. And I'm so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get, to the day and all the things. I mean, this is not every day. Sometimes there's stressful emails that come across. We've got a client traveling, and but for the most part, I'm always geared up for whatever challenges the day holds. I love it. I love it. And it's so rewarding to feel that way every day. And I love what I do. And it's so fulfilling because, like I said, I am in the business of helping individuals optimize and live their most super well lives, whether it's traveling or through the super well community. And that's a gift because I know God put me on the earth to do this, and it's truly not work. It is the things that I hear from the women in my community every day. There isn't a single pair of shoes, purse, car, anything that could replace that. I have zero interest in shopping, and which Chris loves. He's like, geez, she's been so busy over the last 15 years. Our credit card bills have really gone down. I'm like, easy now.
Yeah. Don't speak too soon, Chris. This can always change.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I want to get into your business, but I thought of what you said about just sometimes being, Chris Pronger's wife. Was there ever a time in this lifestyle when you guys were still like in the middle of it where you did feel, before you found your purpose and your calling, of like, who am I, or feeling just a little bit lost or a little bit in the back seat of everything?
Yeah. I think so. Because I was always very vocal with Chris that this is who I am and this is what I want to do. I knew I was working towards something, but I also loved watching him through his career. I
Yeah.
mean, wildly successful and so talented and passionate and driven, so smart, the way he played the game. And I don't know a whole lot about sports. I mean, my brothers and all my guy friends would teach me all this stuff, but I just saw the dedication. And now to see him, I mean, this is very emotional for me to talk about. He just wrote his book as well called Earned. And after I wrote my book, by the way. So, just throwing that nugget out there. I was the first one. But
He
anywho.
was inspired by you.
Yes, there you go. But he really walks that talk. And it has been an absolute pleasure to walk alongside him through our marriage. And so whether, as you asked about, was it weird being in the shadow? I proudly loved that role. And now things come full circle. This is such a funny story. This has been happening a lot lately. In particular, there was one, so he's pumping gas the other day, and this gal pulls up next to him in this car, and he's like, oh, great, here we go. She's going to want an autograph. And she's like, oh my God, are you Chris Pronger? You're Mr. Superwell. Oh my God. She was like,
oh my God.
I'm so honored to meet you, Mr. Superwell. She's like, you're married to Lauren.
That is amazing. A humbling moment.
Oh my God. He calls me and he goes, Lauren, you made it.
Oh my God. You're like, yes, I did.
Oh my God.
Hockey families are always on the go. Between traveling, long nights at the rink, weekends on the road, and trying to keep everybody fed in between, grocery shopping can easily become one more thing on your plate. That is why I love Thrive Market. It's an online grocery store that delivers high-quality pantry staples, healthy snacks, and household favorites right to your door. It just makes it so much easier, and my kids are always wanting a snack the second we set foot outside of the door. So I always love having healthy snacks on hand, in my bag, wherever and whatever I'm doing. If you're looking for an easier way to stock your pantry without sacrificing the products that you love, check out Thrive Market and use the link through my show notes to get 40% off your first order. Now let's get back to the conversation. So share with me all about your business, because you were doing all the things. And I got lost on your website over the past few days. I was reading multiple blogs. You were such a good writer. I know you've written a book. So share with me about what you do.
So yes, my book, actually, I have it right here. I'm very proud of it. Super well. It was a #1 international bestseller in multiple countries in record time. Probably the help of Well Inspired Travels and all my friends and partners abroad that have been supportive of me and what I have been building. So I launched that in 2018. As I said, I was always working towards something. And I grew up traveling the world, had the beautiful blessing of exploring a lot with my family. And I always valued what we learned when we were traveling, bringing home into your everyday life so you are more optimal and you learn from those travels, because the world can teach you so much. Culture, cuisine, movement, mindfulness, you name it. It's just endless gifts along the way. And so travel was always really important to me. When I met Chris, back 27 years ago, he was best in the league. And, he was top 3 players, and he was very regimented. He left home when he was 15. You all know all about that journey. That's what they do. And when he did travel, it was always going to ice rinks. He didn't really get to explore a whole lot. He had played in several Olympics, and, but for me to say to him, hey, off season, a big part of who I am, I want to go travel the world with you. And I mean, he just immediately panicked, like, oh, I can't do that. I mean, I can't leave my strength trainers, my dietitian, all these people. And you could just see the anxiety come across his face. And I said, just give me one summer and let me curate something. And then you can come back to me if it's a mess and it destroys your career. And that next year, he was MVP of the league and, had one of the best seasons of his life. And I'm not crediting that, but I do believe that, I told Chris, this is kind of a funny side note. he spent a lot of time in the penalty box, we'll just say. And, I think you could learn, some different modalities to help calm your central nervous system. Let's learn how to breathe. And, all of
Yeah.
those things that, whether it was I was opening up his eyes to eating all the colors of the rainbow, what polyphenols will do for you, whether it was, how to calm your central nervous system and all of these things that he was learning along the way that were very organic as we were traveling, not forced. I mean, his plate used to be boil in the bag rice and chicken. It was literally the color of that door. It was like the most beige plate. And so anywho, we then continued to travel with our kids because he clearly saw the value of it. And in our world, your family, when you move to new cities, is always professional athletes, wives and girlfriends from all different sports, whether it's baseball, basketball, golf, you name it. That's your trust, that's your tribe, that's your circle. And so they were watching because my account, my social was always on lockdown up until 2 years ago when I launched Super Well. Very protective for our kids. Just Chris being, who he was and is as a Hall of Famer. And so I had that all locked down. But the people that I was friends with, and back then it was Facebook, would see all the travels and I would be sharing photos and videos along the way. And that's how it organically unfolded. Again, going back to that point of, start something you're passionate about. And these women would reach out to me and say, oh my God, those trips are incredible. Like, who did that for you? And we're up against the same issue. And my husband won't do this because of this, this, and this, and this. And so I said, oh my God, this is so easy. I'll plan the exact same trip. And so it organically turned from like doing this for 10 friends to 20 friends. And I was like, oh my God, this is so great. I love what I'm doing. And these families are coming back. These couples are coming back, having the best experience. And this is a niche market. And so I knew I was building something. And so I went to the biggest travel agency in North America, presented the idea. And this was kind of back in, like I said, 2017, 2018. And they're scratching their head going, you want to really focus on wellness travel? Well, there's leisure, there's group sales, there's all the other things. But, if you want to give it a whirl. And, then we bumped into COVID. So I launched Well Inspired Travels, just me alone. And it was me building the website, doing all the things, learning the systems, the Sabre coding system, all while my kids were at school. And then we came out of COVID, and I did hire some additional employees through a lot of the building process. And we just rocket shipped because out of COVID, everybody wanted 3 things. They wanted to travel, they wanted community, and they wanted to learn how to be more super well because they did not trust what was happening in the world. And it was like, we just blew up. And now, proud to say, incredible partnership with, I love who I'm partnered with. Incredible team, 15 employees. I love my partner. And we are just, well-oiled machine. It is high touch, white glove service. We handle anything and everything. And so that kind of segueing into Super Well, that really allowed me to peel back from the computer and lean into my personal passion and my personal brand. And that evolved again, simultaneously building, going back to 2011, I started with my first certification with Institute of Integrative Nutrition and went on, did 3 years with them, and then Master of Nutritious Life, contrast therapist with a doctor in Denmark, which is heat and cold shock therapy, breathwork, meditation, sound healing, you name it. I was just building this Super Well lifestyle and method. And that all stemmed from going back to kind of bringing the conversation full circle, the stress of being a wife and a mother and all the demands. My system through the years of being married to Chris and all that we endure, which, as I said, there's always blessings, but it's a lot on the stress and taking it all in. So I'd gone through a couple bouts of burnout and really terrible burnout. And that's what led me to further my education, because I always say knowledge is power. I did not want to lean on the rest of my life having to take pharmaceuticals. I really wanted a holistic path. And that's the symbolism of this hat, which is my personal brand hat. And it's very symbolic about a captain. Get in the driver's seat. Be the driver of your own wellness journey. Do not be a passive passenger. You need to be the one, and knowledge is power is the way you're going to get there. And so I just really loaded up all this education over a span of 15 years. It wasn't overnight, going back to what I said. Start something, whether it's education, and it will lead to something greater. And I have like this tool belt of, this is like my burnout insurance tool belt. It says, I have breather, whoosh, I got contrast therapy, whoosh, I got nutrition, I got dietitian, I've got all these things that if I start tiptoeing back that direction, I know how to safeguard myself, and I hold myself to very strict boundaries for that. So it's amazing. I've got an incredible community of women that inspire me, lift me up, and I learn from them. I do a lot of retreats. So it's synergistically so beautifully woven with Well Inspired Travels because I book the private retreats and I know the best of the best. Our team helps curate all of that. I lead the retreats. They're all private and I don't really advertise them very often. And then, what else was I going to say about Super Well? I am launching an app soon. I have the book, which is your blueprint. This is the blueprint to burnout insurance.
I need to get that book. I'm going to order it.
It's very interactive. It has like tons. I'm such a visual person. It has a ton of photos, recipes, all the nerdy stuff. It's based on the 8 pillars of Super Well Living method, which is very intentional with the number 8 because there's no broken chain in it. It's the infinity symbol of the interconnectedness, ranging from nourishing nutrition to optimal sleep, you name it. I mean, it's truly the lifestyle. And I have a lot of fun along the way. I love what I do. I've got hop on this pink puffer all the time. I talk to the women in my community. And it's just, I have acquired several trademarks across the span of Super Well because it's such a powerful brand. I started that 6 years ago. Every holiday, I'd buy myself trademarks, not purses or shoes. My husband's like, you are so crazy. And then I acquired the domain. That was a massive beast, of negotiating. I put my big girl pants on. Don't be scared. And, so proud of that. It's very much like Nike, just do it. I should have probably started with that with Super Well because my mantra in life has always been, I am the well striving to be super well. Why the heck not? And I'm here to be a guide for others to do the same. And it's so powerful and it means so much to me. I don't sit here and say I am super well. I say I am super well-ish. I'm striving every day. I don't want to wake up and say, you know what? Today I'm okay. I'm kind of well, but I'll just settle for it. Or, my family had all these health issues and my genetic code says I'm determined to have this, this, and this, and this. No, we are in control of that. And it's epigenetics is a fascinating, now I go down the nerdy rabbit hole, but it really is. The lifestyle you live pulls the trigger on turning those cells on and off. And I've got more data. I've got a CGM I've been wearing for 4 years, part of the big testing for that. Whoop. I have more data, more blood work, more data, all the things. And, but it really is, just my leading passion and mission every day. And, I some days, don't hit it so hard, in terms of nailing Super Well, but every day reset. And that's what I encourage everybody to do.
Well, sometimes too, on those days where, rest is also productive when you're not, that's important as well. But that's amazing what you're doing. And I can tell how passionate you are about this. Like, it's not just a job. This is like your calling, and how fulfilling to probably for you and your husband both, like you supported him through that time in his life. And now you guys can support each other. He can support you following your dreams. And I love that, it kind of is a full circle moment for you. And like you said, you work towards that over this time and look at what you've created now. And that's amazing. I love everything you're saying. And I totally agree too. It's like, it's very, actually one of the blog posts that I read that I really loved, I wrote it down just so I remembered the exact name, was the From Burnout to Brilliance one. And that resonated with me so much because I will speak for myself. I definitely feel like that during the hockey season. And I think a lot of other people do as well. With the burnout Chris's injury that led to his retirement, wasn't that kind of one of the factors that kind of led you into this nervous system overdrive that ultimately kind of started turning things around for you?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It was really, I think, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
Some of my closest friends, my family don't know. I mean, even to this day, all that I went through, and I would just protect myself because I didn't want to burden them. But
Yeah.
it was spiraling that way for a while. Really all the craziness of the trades, the moves, like just it's, and I
Go, go.
don't down because we all know, like, and
Right.
it's a slow build of a burn, slow burn, and then man, boom, it was just I broke. Chris, had a career-ending concussion. He was the man who was the leader of our family. I mean, he was invincible. And, all of a sudden he was so broken, and it was the scariest time of my life. Bedridden, I'd have to help him go to the bathroom and, walk to the bathroom. It was that bad. And, I had seen through the years with his concussions, I mean, there were always warning signs. We'd drive home from games and we'd have all three kiddos, in the back buckled in and their cute little pumpkin seats and everything. Um, he'd have to pull over to the road and he'd say, "You're gonna have to drive," because he couldn't see the lights, with the kinda getting his bell rung a little bit too much, and
Yeah.
so, I mean, all the stress that you endure and you watch them go through, and then, my dad had a stroke at that time. Chris was bedridden, and my mom, shortly after that, was diagnosed with breast cancer and 3 little kids, and I wasn't able to meet the demands of all the people that I needed to care for, and I was doing all the wrong things, even though I
Including yourself,
Yes.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
god. I mean, and I knew better, but I was fueling myself on loads of caffeine to get by, empty stomach, not fueling myself, nourishing nutrition, I mean, for stress management, I put my daughter in the stroller and we go run and just getting those adrenals and the cortisol, zoo, zoo, zoo. And, at the end of the day, I'd get the boys from school and I'd be making dinner and I'm like, pour a couple glasses of wine. And it's like, then you can't
Mhm.
sleep. Well, you do
Mhm.
that for 3 months like that, and like at night, I was just ruminating on all the things going on. You are going to find yourself rock bottom. Well, then I was no good to anybody. And that, like that was really my rebuilding. And I wanted to do it on my own terms. And like I said, I did it really through education. But it was a slow spiral for multiple years. So if anybody is listening, the biggest takeaway would probably be, don't live in that space for too long as best you can. Be aware of it because, looking back, I should have probably talked to my family. I probably should have talked to more friends and released that instead of internalizing it, and being like, no, I can do more. I can push more. I can demand more of myself. Lesson learned. And that's why I truly lead with heart and passion in creating this book, because if there's a gift I can at least offer somebody, if I'm not going to, be able to get on a call with them or whatever, or they can't come to my retreats, maybe they can pick up this book. And if there's, a few takeaways of me sharing my vulnerability, and like I said, I wrote this with the intention of true burnout insurance. How do we get there and maintain that? And It's something special, and it's the legacy, that I want to leave, and certainly the legacy that I want to leave for my kids. It's so cute because my kids all say, "Gosh, someday, Mom, this book's going to be sitting on the counter, and we're going to have kids, and they're going to say, 'Look at my super well granny.'" I'm like, "Oh, not that I'm anticipating having grandkids anytime, but
Hey, you'll be a young, hot granny, so that's good.
yeah."
Oh my gosh. I wanted to go back because a lot of women, when you talk about retirement, I think when you think about it and you're not really in that phase, you just assume like, oh, you get to choose your retirement or when you're ready, when they're ready to hang them up. And anything can happen at any point, right? Like obviously he had an extremely serious injury that forced him into retirement.
Yeah.
But I think that's something I don't really talk about enough on the podcast because I think women can feel really alone in that when that happens because, these guys have been doing this their entire life. Like you said, like my husband also moved out to Canada when he was 15 years old. Like those are like, that's not like the norm of what most people do in their lives that aren't athletes. And so they've been doing this since they were little kids. And then to have that happen at full stop, he's an extremely successful hockey player. What was that like? I mean, two separate worlds, like on your end and his end, but what was that like for him coping and processing that his career was just over like that on a kind of just so quickly?
Yeah, I love this question and I appreciate it so much the way, you're thoughtful about the value of what we're talking about because I don't think it's spoken about enough and nobody needs to feel alone. I mean, that's a big part of Well Inspired Travels when I would come alongside these women and we're curating these trips. I find myself, I was kind of in this role as a mentor because then the vulnerabilities would come about of all that they're dealing with or whether, their husband is struggling with depression or concussions or whatever it was. And Chris went through a lot in his career and a lot of really good and exceptionally accomplished, but also a lot of really challenging, hard times. And I think nobody needs to suffer in silence alone, and nobody has a perfect journey. And Chris it was really hard. I mean, there was a whammy of a concussion and I mean, I could go on and on about it, but I think, he went through certainly moments of terrible depression because when you have that ripped out from underneath you, your true love and passion, just waking up, the routine, the ritual, the smell of the ice, all the things. And then you're kind of like outcast, not that his teammates, like he had amazing teammates, but you're just not, they're in the space of the room. They're focused on winning. You kind of get left behind. It's like this little and now you're home with your wife and your little kids and everything, in terms of just the vestibular and where his head was at, he was just overstimulated by the littlest noise or what have you. And I mean, I remember vividly when he was probably at his worst, he had no sensory awareness. And Chris was famous for always knowing where every player was on the ice. And he could see a play before it even happened. And he was so good at passes and all the things. And he always knew where everybody was. And when it was really bad and he knew he had to step away from the game, he got run pretty hard a few times and because he didn't know that a player was there. And he talks about this all the time. He's like, that was really scary for me because he had that awareness. But the kids were running around the house and this is when he was really, really bad. And, he was standing in the kitchen and he was at the desk and Jack came cruising down the back staircase. And I mean, I could hear him clear as day. I knew he was coming down like a madman with George. And he came around the corner and Chris just was so scared and caught off guard. He went around and almost took him out. He could not, his brain could not handle that noise and just all the things. And I think life, was complicated for him and one of the things that I think Chris did so well was gave himself the grace. And I loved him through all of it and knew we were going to get through it. As I said, faith is huge part of who I am and, all the prayers and believing that, we would get through this. They're never, the same after something like that. But I think when you're not in a rush to have it all figured out, and Chris wasn't, and he gave himself, that time to truly step away from, the whole hockey world and focused on seeing the doctors, doing the work. And and then he just slowly eased back into it. And again, it's kind of like rebuilding the way I talked about as a woman, chase your passions, start somewhere to bring it into the mindset of for guys when they retire or whether they come out of the game on their terms or not. My guidance to any wife would say, or to any guy would watching Chris, what he did. He just started trying this, trying that. He worked for player safety in the league for a long time. Loved that. He learned great skills there. Then he was in management, and learned great skills there. And, he still, I think, wants to be a general manager someday. But he also has sprinkled in so much for himself in terms of now he wrote a book and he speaks on mentorship, accountability, earning your life in every capacity in a sense. And it applies to every job and it resonates with everybody. And, he really has gotten out of his comfort zone and he shares the vulnerabilities along the way. He stopped drinking, over 3 years ago, which has really amplified him to the next level. And yeah, it's been an absolute, again, joy and inspiring to watch alongside him, because he has reinvented himself. He's no longer just Chris, the hockey player, Hall of Famer, which is unbelievable. There isn't a single accolade or award he hasn't won. I mean, 2 gold medals, Hall of Fame, you name it, Stanley Cup. He did it. And an incredible husband, incredible father. And now he's like, international bestseller, a speaker. And I think that's really cool for somebody to carve out a new identity for themselves. And it's just to walk alongside him and, enter into this chapter 2, both of us. I always say, we're like 2 wild Mustangs, like, just let us out of the gate. Like we're just, I doing, 2 different things that complement each other in an incredible way. And we give each other so much freedom. We're both very independent and to allow each other to chase our dreams and our goals. But we also, like I spoke in New York last week on some big panels at the Athletech News Summit. And there were all these investors and big finance guys, and it was the business of wellness. I mean, billionaires there. And here I am speaking in front of them, and Chris came to support me, and he's in the seat videoing everything. And he was like, "Look at you go, girl." He was like, "You are stronger on that stage." He was like, "Wow." But it's just comes full circle, and we don't have it all figured out, and we're not perfect still. I still want to wring his neck half of the time of the day, but it's a lot of fun and it's exciting.
Have you seen that reel that's like, all men will annoy you, some will annoy you in Italy, choose wisely? I was like, that's great. That's great.
So good. So good.
Oh, I love that. And so you guys obviously are both very busy, very successful. How do you find that time for each other as well to relax and pour into each other? Like, how do you find that balance? And I think that applies and pertains to people that are still in the lifestyle, right? When you have your husband's on the road and then you're at home and tired, and then it's like, coming together. How do you create those routines with each other?
Yeah. And I think that's so important. Especially since, I started Well Inspired Travels and then Chris joined up with me when it really started gearing up. And so we were finding ourselves bringing a lot of work, at the dinner table, and it was all evolving around that. So I think you have to be cognizant of getting away from technology. I mean, it's part of the pillars of the Super Well Living method. Movement. I always walk. We walk after every meal, whether it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, intentionally without technology as best we can. Sometimes I have my phone and pink puffer with me because I'm like, oh, I want to tell them this story or whatever, which we're known to do a lot of funny stuff on the fly. I mean, we just rep, and I just let people see the real because Chris is really, really funny. But I would say really, at the end of the day, whenever he is home or I'm home, we try to get out in nature, go for walks. That's really where we connect most. And, talking about how we can support each other. Sometimes we're talking about the kids, sometimes we're talking about work, but, making sure that you're keeping all those balls in the air, the intimacy factor, and making sure you're not going to bed, to all the things that are so important. And I think you can get caught in a cycle of not nurturing that. And at the end of the day, you have to love that person like they're your best friend and not just, your spouse. And how do you treat your best friend? And, do you how do you support them on every level Chris doesn't have to come and support me when I'm speaking. He has the busiest schedule. He has to say no to a lot of massive opportunities where he's getting paid triple what I'm getting paid. And he says no because he's feeding into me. And in turn, that's very sexy. That keeps me like the fire alive in us of being like, oh my God, like you think I'm special. And it's just,
He
it's so,
values you.
yeah, the
Yeah.
intentionality behind it and not, that's one thing that I would say. And anybody that knows Chris, he is the most humble, loyal person. So accomplished and has made a lot of money in his career. And he still is the same old guy. And he drives a Chevy Suburban. And, my car is, I don't know, 5 years old. My girlfriend just said, God, you have an old jalopy. I'm like, we're just pretty simple people. And I love that about him. It's just very similar. But he is my best friend, truly. And we have a very close group of friends. We're all about quality over quantity. And really and truly, Chris and myself just love being together, the two of us.
Yeah.
We have so much fun. He's so funny. And, we're celebrating our 25th anniversary, like I said, and we'll be away for 2 weeks, the two of us. And I'm so excited because we go to these properties, and we're going to Montana and Colorado. And obviously I do a lot of work with the properties. I'm also a wellness consultant. So I go into the 5-star hotels and brands Organically Unfolded, where they bring me in to figure out what they need to offer for essentially our clients to come through their doors, which is really that's like a huge demand for me right now. But outside of doing the content and working with the properties, we'll be hiking and biking and doing all the things. And we just have so much fun together, and we could go to Italy, we could go to France, in the travel business, we have access to anywhere in the world. And we're like, we don't want to deal with the tourists. We don't need to go to Michelin star restaurants. We just want to be out in nature and have fun and just, get away from all the other demands that we say yes to all year.
I love that. And I love that you guys have stayed true to yourselves throughout everything, because I think it is easy to kind of get caught up in that keeping up with the Joneses stuff that, you see someone have something and then it's so staying true to yourself is so important. And I love that so much. I wanted to ask you too, with the progression of social media and hockey and all these hockey shows, how has that been for you guys, seeing how much popularity the sport has gained over the years?
It's, bananas. I'm just glad we were not in that era. Because I know, I've had to implement it in my business because of the personal brand was super well.
Right.
It's a love-hate relationship. But I just can't imagine, the way they're under the microscope, and especially knowing what I know, which those are, I'm an open book about all of it, and I will share any of it if anybody wants specific answers to things that we went through that were public, that were really challenging and tough in our family and could have broken us and almost did break us. I can't even imagine what these women, I have such a heart for that. And even the guys, of being under the scrutiny of people attacking you on social or whatever it is. And also being, fearful of people having technology and phones and cameras at their disposal whenever they want. And that's really amplifies everything. But it's exciting to see how hockey now is like the cool sport. It always has been amazing.
Right.
But, I think and also I love, the hockey players are really the salt of the earth. They're all such good guys.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think they're likable. And for the most part, they're a lot like Chris. They're grounded, humble, hardworking. So it's exciting to see how the sport is winning in all aspects. And our boys, they love it. And obviously Chris, it will always be woven in our family. It's in Chris's blood. He just, so it's exciting for the growth to see, but also, like you said, just the challenges too.
Yeah. Do either of your boys play hockey?
So they played, it's a great question. They played up until they were freshman in high school, our oldest. He is very driven. He is wired just like Chris. And so is George too, but George is a little bit more sensitive. And Jack has always had this pressure on himself. And actually, a lot of women probably could find value in hearing this. The oldest, I don't know if it's the oldest son or what it is, but he's always wanted to measure up to his dad in some aspect and be like, I am Chris Pronger, now it's like in business. Back then it was in hockey and it was really tough. He went to, like, he did AAA hockey level and he had some really awful teammates that were intimidated by him. He hadn't even hit puberty, which now he's 6'6". He's bigger than Chris. He's massive.
Wow.
And, they would say stuff like, your dad's banners in the rafters, Hall of Famer or what have you. You're never going to measure up to him. And there was just a lot of that nonsense that was going on. And so he decided, he was like, well, I'm just going to play basketball. And he decided he wanted to play basketball freshman year in high school. Never really played the sport other than maybe shooting some hoops in the backyard. And he was bound and determined to make varsity the freshman year, which was like unheard of because it was on a very competitive basketball team. He made varsity that first year. And so he took the route of basketball. And then obviously, as it evolved, he knew he wasn't an NBA player, but, and then George was a goalie. They both played and they loved it. And I think looking back, it's hard to be the son of a professional athlete that is so accomplished. I don't, it's also at the same time, Chantel Kachuk is a very dear friend and love Matthew and Brady, which is so funny because our kids used to all play shinny hockey together in the hallways.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Chuck boys was like, oh my God, beating the shit out of each other. I mean, they were destined to be successful. And it's so cool to see. And I love seeing this for Chantel and their family. And but I always tell my boys, because of course they look back and they're like, well, geez, we should have probably stuck with it. Like, and I know 1,000 players, boys that tried to make it, and the hardship of the dynamic between the husband and the sons and the pressures that they don't make it. And it's tough. And I'm like, not everybody is like a Kachuk boy. Just because his dad obviously played with your dad and everything, it's not that easy. And, like your life is your own life. And I'm so proud of all that they've accomplished. And Jack is on the path truly of being a Hall of Famer in AI and tech. He's a absolute beast. I mean, that kid. And George, is on his path for real estate, and he's still he's going to be a senior in college. So, and he's thriving. He's going to graduate on time. He's 6'7". He's actually the biggest one of the family.
Oh my gosh. Are you tall? How tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
Well, that's tall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm 5'8".
It'd be odd. You're 5'8". Yeah. It'd be really odd. I always say if we had short kids, people would be like, okay, who's your mailman?
Yeah. Exactly. I know. I like being tall. When I was younger, I was kind of self-conscious of it because I was always taller than the boys. But then when you get older, it's a good thing. And I think, I know my kids are going to be tall too. They're heads above people in their grade already. Like in kindergarten, my son has like this much height on everybody. I'm like, it'll be interesting to see how it, turns out as they get older. But thank you for sharing that about your son. I think that's an important point, that there is a lot of pressure sometimes on the kids to live up to these, not expectations, that's not the word I'm looking for, like accomplishments, of their dad. So, and you're obviously an amazing mom and so supportive of everything that they've done, and they sound like really great kids. So if you could give advice, and I ask this every podcast episode because I love every answer that is given because they're all so very different. If you could give advice to anybody that's listening to this episode right now, what would it be? And it can be in terms of anything. It can be like a full circle thing. You can think on it if you need a minute. But
would this be, can I ask specifics? Would this be to a wife of a hockey player, or would it just be any woman?
Yeah, like someone that's living this lifestyle. Obviously, there's people that listen that are, fans or interested in the sport, but for someone that's just in the middle of it right now, or maybe towards the end, just anything that comes to mind that looking back, what you maybe wish you could hear at the time.
I mean, we had such a wonderful conversation and so many little nuggets I feel like I did share. And I guess I would go back to the importance of, fueling your own cup and making sure you're also doing something for yourself. And I look back and, I'm just so glad, and I didn't have it all figured out, but I'm just so glad that I established that. And I think so often, we get kind of in the wife of, as we spoke about, and, enjoy the ride while you're in it because it's so much fun. And the memories that are made, the friendships with the other wives, and enjoy it because it goes so fast, but also at the same time, don't lose yourself. And your husband will find you sexier, smarter, more accomplished. And I look now at, chapter 2 for us. I'm so excited about what life has in store for us. And I feel like, as I was, building, chapter 2 for myself, it almost encouraged Chris to do it as well. Because, so many friends of ours that, have retired, they're, overweight and not doing anything with their lives. And they're kind of beat down, retired hockey players. And the wives kind of like get into that lifestyle. And I think, you hold each other accountable for leveling up and being more super well in every aspect. Why the heck not? It's like, start building something that you love and you're passionate about. And but when you're in the moment, enjoy it, because I mean, I love thinking about all the memories. And it seems like all the hard times are so much of a blur. And you look back at those hard times, and those were building blocks. As we always say, adversity makes you stronger. And had I not gone through my terrible burnout, I look at it truly as a gift. I'll never forget my mom when she was at her lowest, weakest state, and she was so sick, with breast cancer, and I was so broken. And I felt so, like I was not able to help anybody, and I felt worthless. And and she said, "You're in the eye of the storm, and God is putting you in this place because you are." Oh my God, I'm getting teary talking about it, but you are meant to use this as a gift for people in the future or yourself. And it's so true. Like I never would have built super well, and all that, if it wasn't rock bottom like that. So I don't know. On that note, God, I wasn't expecting, you made me cry.
Thank you you're making me cry over here.
No, to me, that's, the hardest times really are what build us and us at the end of the day.
Sometimes I've learned too, like when you're going through it and you're in the thick of it, you might not see it as a lesson, but then when you look back, you're like, oh, that made me so much stronger, so much, more equipped to handle these situations that life throws at me because of the experiences, that you've been through. So
yes,
thank you for
absolutely.
sharing that. And
Oh my God. Yeah, no. I'm all about the real. Like we laugh, we can cry, all the things. And that's what it's all about, that connection point and sharing the real, because that's the value in friendships. And certainly anybody listening here, I'm an open book. Anybody wants to come to me and talk about all the crazy, challenges, the journeys, and all the things that, like all the nonsense that goes along with it, because we need support. And so, yeah. And I just appreciate the conversation. I love all your questions. You're so easy to talk to. And
likewise, you are so well spoken. I'm just listening. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's amazing. So thank you truly for coming on the podcast and just sharing your journey and about you. And for people that are listening, if they want to follow you on Instagram and see what you're up to, where can they find you?
Oh my gosh, that's where all the fun happens. So it's on Instagram. I really just focus on that. It's Lauren_Pronger. And yeah, that's where, like I said, all the fun and the magic happens. You never know what I'm up to. Even my kids are like, my God, Mom, like, do you ever have like a cutoff point? I'm like, no.
Nope. No. Well, that's amazing. That's good that you have all this energy. I'm like, you're inspiring. And I
Thank
think you're going to inspire a lot of people that are listening. So thank you for being here.
you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the conversation.
You too.